So thank you all for joining us today. For this event, how can the CSE Career Center support your student? My name is Andre Hansen. I am the Assistant Director of Events and Alumni Relations for the college. And before we get started with today's event, I just want to run through a few housekeeping notes. So if you would prefer to listen to today's webinar by phone, you can call in using the instructions on the screen. These were also shared with you in the confirmation email that you received. We will have time for questions, so please enter any questions you have for our presenter in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. Joelle Larson will be monitoring the Q&A and the chat, and will be compiling questions for Whitney. We are recording today's event, so we will be able to share that recording with you following the event, and along with all the resources shared. There is a live auto transcript option on. If you would like to hide the transcript, you can do so by clicking on the live transcript button at the bottom of your screen and choosing to hide. All right, with that, I'd like to welcome our featured guest today, Whitney Moore. Whitney has been a senior career counselor in the CSE Career Center at the University of Minnesota since the fall of 2011. Her passion lies in living a life of positivity and inspiring others to do the same, particularly while navigating career and leadership development. In addition to her work at the U of M, Whitney is the past president of the Minnesota College and University Career Services Association, and holds degrees from Gustavus Adolphus College and the Minnesota State University Mankato. Whitney will be sharing all the ways that the CSE Career Center supports CSE students so that you can help your students find the right resources for them. All right, Whitney, I'll let you go ahead.
Awesome. Well, good afternoon. It's officially afternoon now, 12:03. I'm just going to get my screen shared here quickly, and then we'll get the ball rolling. As Andrea mentioned, you can use that Q&A box if you have any questions, and Joelle will let me know if any pop up, and definitely feel free to ask during the presentation as well. I'm pretty casual, so I want to make sure I'm addressing questions as they come up if they're relevant to something in particular that I'm speaking about, but we'll also have some time at the end to ask questions as well. So as Andrea mentioned, my name is Whitney Moore, and I am a senior career counselor in the College of Science and Engineering Career Center. I've been there for a little over 9 years now, and our office serves obviously all undergraduate students in the College of Science and Engineering, but we also serve all of our graduate students, so undergraduate through PhD students that are in the college. So it's quite a diverse population of students, even though they're all studying physical sciences and engineering, but they're all very different and have a lot of different career goals, career interests, and just different paths that they're interested in pursuing and trying to learn about, which is one of the reasons that we're so glad that so many of our students participate in our mentor program and get to connect with and learn from so many of the fantastic professionals that are a part of our community, whether you're alumni or just folks who want to be connecting with our students. Are really thankful for that opportunity for our students. So today is just kind of an overview of our services and how we work with students. And I'm going to particularly try to spend some time helping you understand how you maybe could also refer students to us. And I'll also show you probably a couple of resources on our website as well. My email address will be at the end on our on the last slide. So if you have any specific questions, you are definitely welcome to reach out to me individually. I'm happy to, to address any of those as well. And I'll mention that to Andrea if she wants to share that in the follow-up email. Like I said, I'm happy to connect with any of you individually if you've got questions. So let's get the ball rolling. So the first thing I thought I would talk a little bit about is, oh, I don't want to start my video. Hold on. I'm going to skip to my next slide. There we go. I think I'm going to skip the video for today. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is just why might you refer a student to the CSE Career Center? So I tried to list as many topics here as possible, but also recognize that there are probably things that may come up in your conversations with students that aren't on this list too. They're kind of in order, that a student from first year through when they're graduating, that they may, these topics may come up. So if you're meeting with a student who's earlier in their college career, a first year student or a sophomore, they may be still kind of trying to determine how they want to use their time outside of the classroom. And so kind of all of the activities that they may participate in and ways that they may spend their time outside of the classroom, we consider, or we kind of talk about as student engagement. And our students are familiar with that term. We talk about it in their first year experience course that all of our students take. So student engagement would be student group organizations, volunteer work they may do, research, internships, other jobs and types of employment that they may have. The mentor program that they're participating in with you, we would consider student engagement. So like I said, essentially anything that they may spend their time doing outside of the classroom. It's a very overwhelming list. Our college has a lot that students can get involved in, and I'll say that it's common for students in CSE to feel like all of the different options that they have for themselves is a checklist, and that they have to do one of everything. And that's definitely not the case. So if you feel like your mentee is, like I said, struggling a little bit with how to spend their time outside of the classroom, what sorts of activities to get involved with, we are definitely a good place for them to start that conversation, and help them do some strategizing around what it is that they want to participate and kind of determining what they're really interested in and what would be a good use of their time. Which also kind of leads into major and career exploration. So our sophomore students, in the fall of sophomore year is when our students apply to their major. So all of our students come into the college just as basically as an undecided student, and they apply for their major, like I said, in the fall of their sophomore year, and then would officially begin in their department in the spring. So you may still be working with some students who are undecided on their major, or exploring different options, or maybe thinking about minors or a double major sometimes, or maybe second guessing the major that they chose. So the Career Center can be a good place to refer them as they're trying to navigate those conversations. Certainly, if you have advice or opinions or thoughts on the things that they're considering, by all means, offer your feedback to them. But we're also a good place to help them with navigating that. And career exploration, then I think of as kind of the next step after they've chosen their major. That starts getting them digging into how do they want to utilize their degree after graduation, what different career paths are out there. And I think one of the things that I always note at that point as well is that many careers that our students pursue could be pursued with a variety of different majors in our college as well. So that's why I often talk about major first, and the career piece kind of coming after that. Some of the other things then that you maybe would have assumed with the Career Center, certainly as students are working on creating and writing resumes and cover letters, we can help them with that and provide feedback as they're writing them, and as their resume or those documents evolve. Internship and job search strategies. I'm going to spend a little bit of time in a couple slides talking about Gold Pass, which is our University of Minnesota job and internship search database. Our office also puts on a number of employer events that we can help students prepare for as well. And I'll talk a little bit more about the different employer events that we offer our students. If students are interested in or considering graduate school, preparing for that, and just navigating that complex process. And then typically job offer evaluation and negotiations would come up sometime during their senior year as well. Potentially evaluating or navigating those processes if they have multiple offers during an internship search as well. And then I said everything else because I always say, you know, these are a list of topics and there's a million other questions and things that come up that fall in between these things. So, you know, when all else fails, we're a great place to just refer students for any career development, major exploration sort of questions. The one thing that I will note is that we do not do course planning with students. So if your student is having questions about course planning, they would want to speak with their academic advisor. But I will occasionally talk with students about courses if they're trying to, you know, think about them from a skills development perspective. You know, if they're trying to determine what sorts of skills they want to be acquiring or gaining through like elective options that they may pick, or through a minor or a double major that they're considering, like I said earlier. So we may talk about that, but we don't do, you know, kind of that rigorous course selection with them. So just to make that distinction between what we may do and what their academic advisor, who all of our students have an assigned academic advisor. Okay, so how might students then actually meet with us or work with us to talk about these questions then? So there's a couple different ways that we work with students on a one-on-one individual basis. And all of these services are still being offered via Zoom and a virtual platform during this time. So we still offer 30-minute appointments that are scheduled in advance through a button on our homepage. They also could call our office or, you know, send an email if they want to get connected with somebody. But those appointments can be scheduled through our homepage, which I'll probably actually bring up our website, like I said, in a few slides here, or maybe even on the next slide, and show you where that button is if you want to specifically show them. But that's where they would schedule a 30-minute appointment. Appointments are nice for students that may want to have a little bit more in-depth conversation. Maybe they have a lot of work to do on their resume. They're just really not sure where to start. They have a lot of questions. An appointment can be, you know, a good place to start with those. However, if a student maybe has some quick questions, or they've worked on their resume before but updated it and want to have another look at it, or, you know, they think it may just be a quick conversation, our drop-ins are also a fantastic place to refer students. So I should have put these on here, but appointments are they're offered at a variety of times. As career counselors, there's a few of us in the Career Center. We just put them on our calendar, so they're kind of all throughout the day. Drop-ins are Monday through Friday from 2 to 4 p.m. So they are a set time, you know, during the work days of the week. And then, like I said, they're kind of a first come, first serve. They check in again through Zoom. We are doing them virtually. There's a button on our homepage. I'll show you where they would click to access the drop-ins. And then we just meet with students for 10 to 15 minutes. Especially right now, drop-ins have been very slow. So, you know, we'll maybe get 1 or 2 a day. So usually students don't have to wait at all, or not very long, if they do come to a drop-in. So those are great places to refer students. We also do a variety of workshops as well, particularly the week before the career fair, which I'll mention in a little bit. So there are also some workshops that we offer where students may get information on, you know, different questions or topics related to the things that we help students with in the Career Center. And then we also have some students that work in the Career Center, our peer assistants, and they also have some short presentations that they do later in the semester that are actually also recorded and on YouTube as well. So I believe we have those linked on our homepage that I'll show you in a minute as well. So these are kind of all the one-on-one ways that a student would meet with us for all those topics and anything else that I mentioned on the previous slide. And then, like I said, some workshops and other events like that where they may be able to get some information in a group, more of a group setting. I also just wanted to mention some of the things that we have on our website. So maybe I will hop over there, like I said, but I'm going to particularly point out our career guides, our Wicked Whammies, which stands for What Can I Do with a Major in? Handouts. And then we also have some grad survey data that, you may end up wanting to refer students to. So I think you should be seeing our website now. Andrea or Joel, let me know if that's not what's showing up. It should be showing you the Career Center website now. So this is our homepage, and I'll have the link for this on one of the last slides, but it's just csE.umn.edu/career. So it's pretty easy to get to. And you'll see here we've got buttons for basically all those different topics that I mentioned a student may want to come in and talk to us about. The first one that I'm not going to go into all of these, but the first one I'll just highlight here quickly is our career guides page. So this may be a really helpful one for you to refer students to, because all those topics that I listed and probably a few others, we have a guide on. So this can be just a really helpful starting point for a student. So, you know, if you've got one that's got questions about resumes and they haven't had a resume review yet, our resume guide is on here. And so these are all PDF documents that are linked on here that you could, you know, show them, refer them to if they aren't familiar with these documents. Similarly, we've got one on cover letter writing, on preparing for career fair, both normal in a normal time and in our virtual setting. We have internship and job search. If you have students that are thinking about an academic job search, we've got a guide on that. Major and career exploration, interviewing, evaluating, and negotiating those job offers. I really like this guide on making break professionally meaningful. So if over winter break here coming up or over summer break, your student is looking for some ideas on, you know, how to spend their time, that guide can be a really helpful one to take a look at as well. So those are just a few of the guides that I'll highlight, but I would definitely recommend referring students to this page because it's just kind of got all the different guides that we have. All these guides are also linked. You know, if you were to go to the resume and cover letters page, you're going to find those relevant guides listed there. I just like the page I showed you because it's got all of them in one place there. One of the other resources I wanted to point out are what can I do with a major in handouts. So if you go under our major and career exploration page here, and scroll down a little bit, you'll see this button, what can I do with a major in? And this will bring up the page where all of our what can I do with a major in guides are listed. So I'm going to just click on one of them just to show you briefly what's on these documents or on these pages. So we have all the information on the web page. There's some different drop down boxes here as well. We've got some profiles from alumni too, which is really great. But I always like to click on this first tab and then just go down to the PDF. This is also just kind of a nice way to see everything in one eye shot. So on these handouts for every major in our college, we have you know, a little bit of information on what someone with this degree may generally do. We have some of our graduation survey outcomes. We have common industries, employers, technical skills that this major degree may acquire, some possible positions, some ways that they may want to get involved, and then some other resources. So these are really helpful, especially for those exploring students, just to give them some handouts to maybe compare different majors that they're thinking about, or even just different career paths, or if they're in their major and still just want to learn more, these handouts can be really nice to refer them to. And then I'm just going to go back to the homepage and show you a couple of other things really quickly. I mentioned our career outcomes or graduation survey data. This can be an interesting page to explore some of our data on past graduates. So I know we just wrapped up our 2020 grad survey in November. And so we're going to be working on compiling the data for this year, which is probably going to be interesting given COVID. But you know, if your student would like some of that graduation survey data, we've got that on this page as well. And then I'll just scroll down and just show you here at the bottom under the contact us. We do have a really great resource guide, a resource document that we are keeping updated with resources relevant to career development and job searching during COVID-19. So this is a really helpful document. You can see linked here. This is also where, as I mentioned, they would schedule an appointment online or attend a drop-in if they'd like. And then I'm going to mention Gold Pass and talk a little bit more about that in one of the next slides here. And this is where they would log into that. And then you can also see our contact information on here as well. So lots of easy to find information on our website that you definitely could feel free to refer students to there. All right, so jumping ahead now just to talk about Gold Pass a little bit, as I've referred to it a couple of times. So as I said earlier, Gold Pass is our University of Minnesota job and internship search database. I will say you may hear it, or your students may hear it referred to as Gold Pass, as Handshake, which is the vendor that we host Gold Pass through, or as it says here, Gold Pass powered by Handshake. So we use all those terms interchangeably for the same system. So it's similar, and some of you who maybe even help with hiring are already familiar with this, but it's similar to Indeed or Simply Hired, where it does have a job and internship posting database. So that's the primary purpose that our students use it for, is to search for jobs and internships that companies are posting for them to see. Sometimes I get asked if there's really a lot in there because it's just limited to the University of Minnesota, and there definitely is. So we see over 30,000 jobs and internships posted for University of Minnesota students in Gold Pass every year, and over half of them are science and engineering related. So we have a little bit of a monopoly on Gold Pass as a college, which just obviously means that our students are really in demand, and the industries that they are in are thriving. So there's definitely ample opportunities across all of our majors for students to be looking for opportunities in Gold Pass. They may also register or just view information on career events that are coming up, many that don't require registering. They can use it to research companies. There's some cool like career path information in Gold Pass as well. And it's really easy for students to log in. They would log in with the same information that they use for their email for the U of M. And then it just walks them through creating a profile. And the first resume that they upload to the system also gets a review from someone in our office. So it's also a good way to get at least a quick review of their resume if they haven't done that before. So very important resource that many students already know about, but some of them don't or may forget about it. So we definitely appreciate when other folks refer them to the system. I've also mentioned our career fairs a couple of times. Those of you who are alumni of the college or like I mentioned, help with recruiting at your companies may be aware of these. But just to get everyone on the same page, we offer 2 career fairs for our students each school year. So one that's usually around the 3rd or 4th week of spring semester, and then the same time frame in spring semester. So we had our fall career fair, I think on the 29th and 30th of September, and then our spring career fair will be coming up on February 9th. And these are great opportunities for students to connect with employers. We are doing them virtually, went very successfully in the fall. A little bit lower attendance by both employers and students, which I think is to be expected right now, but still so many opportunities to talk with employers. Students sign up for a specific time to meet with a company, with a representative, so they really can have a very scheduled day rather than waiting in lines like they have had to in the past when we've had our live event in person, which our career fairs, when they are in person, do happen in Mariucci Arena, where our hockey team plays on the concourse. So we miss our in-person event and the energy from that day, but are really glad that we have a great virtual platform through a vendor called Career Fair Plus, where students, and there's an app and a really great website that they can engage in the fair through. So yeah, we'll be using that same platform in the spring for, like I said, for our spring career fair on February 9th. So definitely encouraging students to participate in that. Both internships and full-time jobs, are available through that event. In addition to the career fair, while it's probably the largest or biggest event that we help students connect with employers, there are a lot of other ways too, some of which are still happening and others that aren't at this time, but we will be continuing in the future. This is a great picture we partnered with our National Society of Black Engineers student group to kind of co-facilitate a site visit at Medtronic. We do typically do a number of site visits each academic year, both across fall and spring semester, where we get a group of students out to a company and get to do a tour. Often there's a panel or some Q&A. So every company does it a little bit differently, but it's always nice for students to kind of physically see the places that they would maybe be working and hear from real live employees. Oftentimes alumni at companies as well. So this is definitely something that will continue in the future when it's safe to do so. We also would have employers do information sessions on campus as well. I think some of them are still doing them virtually, which they could access and see a schedule of those on Gold Pass, as I said. And then other events. So our workshops would be on Gold Pass. And then we have a couple of others, one called Resume Marathon, where I actually plan that event and we line up employers to do resume reviews for students. In the virtual platform, we do ask students to sign up for a specific time slot. And then rather than be first come, first serve, which is typically the format when we're in person. And then we also do a practice interview days. So that's 2 days after our career fair each semester, where again, we have employers that sign up to do, volunteer to do practice interviews with students as well. And students also do need to pre-register for that to sign up for a specific time slot too. We also would typically have employers doing interviews on campus as well. So we have 11 interview rooms in the building that our office is located in. Where we again would facilitate employers coming to campus to do interviews with students. So that's not really happening right now, but most interviews or a lot of them are being done virtually right now anyways. So lots of ways that we work to connect students directly with employers that you can be aware of, and be checking in with your students on if they're partaking in those or taking advantage of them. I also thought then that I would just share a little bit of our career outcomes or graduation survey data. So as I said, we just wrapped up our 2020 or 2019, 2020 survey and are still working on cleaning up all that data. But our most recent compiled stuff is from 2018, 2019. So in a typical normal year, and I hope we're not too far off of this figure this year, but in a typical normal year, we'd be right around 95-96% of our graduates reporting that they are in a job in their field or enrolled in graduate school within 6 months of graduation. And that's really well above the national average. We're really proud of that. And, that hope that as a career center, we're helping students get connected with all of those opportunities. And while obviously a large percentage of our students do go into industry right after graduation, we do have a good number that go into graduate school, and a lot that I'll meet later as alumni who are attending graduate school later after graduation. So I know that if we were to look 5-10 years out, the percentage going to graduate school would be much higher. A couple of years out. And our students really do participate in a lot of different things as students. So I know I mentioned student engagement at the beginning, and all of the ways that they're spending their time outside of the classroom. And again, we as a college really try to encourage and get students to participate in those things and help them develop a lot of the skills that they don't get an opportunity to develop while they're in the classroom. and just build their resume and apply the things that they're learning in the classroom in different ways as well. So how to refer students. So at a minimum, our website, like I've got listed here, second is a great place to start. All of our contact information is listed on there. If you want to even just directly refer them to our email, you can do that as well. And while we are operating fully remotely right now, we do not have anyone physically in our office. If in the future you'd like to know where we are located on the first floor of Lind Hall, which is on Church Street on campus. And we do share a front desk with our academic advising team. So most students should know where we're physically located. Our first year students might not, because most of them haven't really been on campus too much yet. But all of our older students should know where we're at, because they've all had to meet with their academic advisor before. So that's just a little bit of info on how you might refer students. And I do know, I'll say this, I do know that sometimes it's nice to have a specific person to refer a student to. I think sometimes it can be a little intimidating as a student to just like send an email into the abyss to the Career Center and not know who they're going to hear from. So they definitely can do that. Our peer assistants actually monitor and reply to emails, or forward them to me if there's a complicated email that comes in. So they're looked at by really great people, and they would get a quick response. But if you want a specific person to refer them to, you always can. My email will be on the last slide here. You can definitely feel free to send them an email or direct them to my email as well. If you're like, hey, I heard this from this career counselor in a presentation, hopefully you think she seemed great, and you can always refer them directly to me as well. I'm happy to take those emails. I'll also just mention that a lot of the opportunities that I talked about are career fairs, workshops that we have going on, other employer events, students are going to hear about in our CSE student news email as well. And maybe you've heard of this or are familiar with this email, but every Sunday our students, during the semester at least, every Sunday our students get an email from the college with different things that are going on. So if you also feel like you are asking your student, have you heard about any career fairs or any other events? If they continually say no, it might mean that they're not reading their Sunday student news email, which is one that we would definitely encourage them to at least take a skim through. So that might be another suggestion. So it's not just from the Career Center, it's from the college in general. So many other events and student group information, scholarship deadlines, all sorts of stuff is going to be on there. And then and if you want to see what comes out in that email, it is archived on the website that's listed here. And then you can always feel free to engage with us on social media as a college as well, and then you may get a kind of a heads up of stuff that's happening. So that's all the info that I've got. It looks like there's been a couple questions that have come in through the Q&A, so we'll get to those. But feel free to continue submitting questions if you've got them. And then there's my email that I kept mentioning would be coming up. Like I said, if you've got any specific follow-up questions or things that you would want to connect with me on individually, feel free to send me an email. And like I said, feel free to provide that to any students any of your mentees that you're working with as well. So Joelle, what do we got in the Q&A?
We got a couple questions. So the first one came from John Robinson, and he asks, what challenges do you find that foreign students face, and how do you assist them in meeting those challenges?
Yeah. Yes. So I think a couple things come to mind. So we do have a pretty large international student population in the college, and they're definitely one of the subpopulations of our students that utilize the Career Center at a higher rate. So we do work with a lot of our international students. So one of the things that just comes to mind is navigating work authorization, and I come at that from a couple of angles. So one is just them not being as informed or knowledgeable on it, but then also employers not being super knowledgeable on it as well. So if you're a student, if you're working with a mentee who is an international student, has questions about their work authorization, so that could mean a visa, that could mean their CPT or their OPT, which is different work authorizations that they have as a student. We can try to answer those questions. However, our work authorization experts on campus would actually be folks in our International Student and Scholar Services, ISSS. So most international students should be familiar with that office, and they're also a great place to refer students to learn more about that. And then I think probably the bigger challenge then comes on the employer side. So I think there's a couple of facets to that. So one, either employers who aren't very aware of work authorization and how it works, and may have a belief that they can't hire international students, because they're just not super familiar with it, or just companies who have especially military contracts or some other federal sort of contracts that would require them to only be able to hire US citizens. So this can be challenging for our international students, either if a company isn't willing or able to hire or sponsor in the future, even though most of our students would most likely get 3 years of what's called OPT. So it's the kind of work authorization that they'd get right after graduation. Most of our students are eligible for an extension that would give them about 3 years of work before needing an H-1B or work visa. But it's a very costly process for a company to hire or to do that sponsoring. So some that just aren't willing to do that or aren't aware of how that process works. And international students can have a hard time getting into those companies. Some companies would be willing to hire them as an intern, but maybe not for full time. And some companies, unfortunately, still aren't willing to hire them as an intern because they may feel like, if we can't potentially hire them for full time, do we want to hire them as an intern? At that point. So that can be a challenge in helping international students identify employers who aren't under that belief system, or aren't open to that. And we have a variety of different ways that we help them with that. So just with the sorts of questions that they ask, we have a couple resources that we can direct them to that identify employers who have sponsored in the past, which means that they may sponsor in the future. At our career fairs, when employers register, we ask companies to identify if they're open to hiring international students. So there's a lot of different ways that we help them with identifying what employers may be a better fit for them with their international student status. And then I'll just add that on the employer side, then we also do a lot of work to just educate employers on what work authorization looks like, what sponsorship actually is, and all of that sort of stuff. So I mean, we've definitely seen some companies who, once they are more aware, are like, oh yeah, then totally, like we would hire an international student. So we've had some success with that, and it's not just on a college level that's happening either. There is a university-wide effort to really help educate employers about the process of hiring international students as interns and full-time employees as well. I also, you maybe saw on our guides page, we have an international student job search guide with some resources specifically to them. But these are also great students to refer to drop-ins or appointments to get answers or information on things that they may specifically be experiencing. Because just like anybody, everybody's job search is different, and the questions and concerns that they have are different.
Thank you, Whitney. A quick point of clarification. You had mentioned that when folks sign up when employers sign up for the career fair, they can identify if they hire international students. I know when the fair was in person, students would be able to search by employers for example, what majors they were hiring in, as well as whether they were hiring international students. Are students still able to do that filtering when they're signing up for virtual fair appointments?
Yep. So when they view the list of employers, there's all sorts of different filters they can do in there, by major, type of position, and then whether they hire international is just one of those other filters that they can sort employers by.
Great, thank you, Whitney. And we have one more question. And if anyone else has a question, we still have time, so there's still an opportunity to put it in the Q&A. But the one additional question we have right now is from Colleen Guest, and she asks, can you give us any insight into how interviewing has changed during the current times, i.e. COVID? And the same thing with respect to the career fair.
Yeah, so I mean, in some ways it's like no different. And then obviously in other ways it's very different. So I would say like timeline wise, as far as hiring goes and timing of when interviews are happening and interview processes, like the number of interviews a company may be doing in their interview process. I don't think a lot of that has really changed. We're still doing our career fair around the same time and our other events around the same time. I think we've been seeing, the amount of postings that come in to Gold Pass and things like that stay pretty consistent with things in the past. I think obviously the thing that's the most different with interviewing right now is just that it's happening mostly virtually. I have had a few students that I've worked with that have had on site. So actually one of our peer assistants that works in the Career Center, I supervise those students. I know one of them, she had an on-site interview in a manufacturing setting where they practice social distancing and wear masks and things like that. So I think there is still a little bit of in-person happening here and there, depending on the company. But in most cases, it's just that a lot of it is being moved virtually, which, and I think I don't necessarily know that companies are changing much, whether they're doing phone. Like I think a lot of companies are still, if they had done phone interviews in the past for like a first round, they're probably doing that still. But then if they would have normally done like some sort of in-person interview, I think that they're mostly doing something like Zoom or like Microsoft Teams or, some sort of like video chat interview platform. So I don't think that, it doesn't seem like phone interviews are going up necessarily. I think that they're more just like the in-person ones that would have happened are moving more towards a video platform, which is different, but I think I'm glad that they're going to more of the virtual than the phone, because at least they still get kind of the semi face-to-face interaction. And, they're still able to see the people that they're interviewing with and vice versa, which we definitely are coaching students on just basic things like how to make sure that they're still dressed appropriately, that what's behind them in their interview space is appropriate, how to make sure that they can have privacy and, avoid distractions or interruptions in the space that they're interviewing in and all that sort of stuff. But at least they're still getting the face-to-face sort of interview interaction with an employer, like they would have if they were, physically sitting in the same room interviewing with somebody. So I mean, other than that, other than a lot of most of the in-person interviews being moved to a video or virtual interview setting, I think there's a lot, like I said, that also hasn't changed. I don't think that employers are doing, if they would have done 2 rounds of interviews, I don't think they're shortening that or lengthening that. I think they're just moving them virtually. And then obviously one of the other things, like I mentioned earlier, is we used to have a lot of companies that would come on campus to do interviews with students in person. And obviously that's not happening right now, but they're offering them virtually. So they're still really accessible to students in most cases to be doing them from wherever they're living. So that was obviously one of the big draws of offering on-campus interviews, at least for an initial round, is that it made them really accessible for students just to be right on campus. So yeah, the other thing that I'll just refer to just with it, this question specifically being about COVID, I mentioned on our homepage of our website, and I can point out where it is again. We've got this COVID-19 related resources guide, and this is one we're updating all the time. And we do have a few resources. If I scroll down here on networking, but then specifically on virtual interviewing. So you can always refer students to that. Oh, and I think that question also asked about the career fair. So the career fair, so I would say, just it's smaller, like it's still large, there's still large events. We still have, a huge, I'm trying to think how many companies we had, maybe around 150 that participated in the fall career fair. And I'm not sure, we're still taking registration for the spring. I'm sure it'll be a little bit lower than in the past, but there's still a lot of employers that are participating and signing up. The biggest thing that's different is just the format. So whereas in the past, employers would have had a table or a booth at a career fair and then students wait in line, they come during the time slot that they have available that day, and they wait in line to talk to, the employers that they hope to speak to. Now students sign up for a specific time. So every employer that's participating basically puts out a schedule, and then we have a day where all the schedules open up on the app, or they can go to the website too, and then they sign up for specific time slots with employers. So in some ways, I almost think it can be a more efficient use of time for students because they don't have to waste time standing in line. If they have an hour block, for an in-person career fair, they may get to talk to like 2 companies. Whereas if they have an hour block with the virtual career fair, they may get to talk to 3 or 4 or more, just depending on how things play out, because they're not waiting in a line. They can kind of book them back to back and not be needing to set aside a time to be online. So it is a little bit more efficient in that way as well. So while a lot's different and it's virtual and they're talking over a video instead of being in person, there's also some positive things about it too. And I think it even made the event accessible to some students who wouldn't have been able to make it in the past, because they can fit it in more easily between classes rather than having to walk across campus to physically go somewhere.
Great, thank you, Whitney. And we have one final question from Rachel Shornack. I hope I said that correctly. I apologize, Rachel, if I didn't pronounce your last name correctly. Do you provide assistance for finding on-campus jobs or undergraduate research? And have those opportunities been impacted by COVID?
So student could definitely talk with us if they're looking for on-campus work opportunities or research. I will say that there is a separate job posting, like student job posting website that's found on, I think it's just student jobs at UMN.edu or something along those lines. If you go to the UMN page and search student jobs, the page will come up. So if they want to view jobs on campus, whether they're just general student employment or research related, that's where they would go to see those opportunities. But a lot of them still require students, so we can help students with navigating that process. And then a lot of them will still ask for a resume or a cover letter, or it may involve an interview. So I know, like, for the students that I supervise in our office, we do all of that. Students apply with a resume and a cover letter, and we have an interview. So we would definitely help them with that process, or just if they're looking for any sort of job during their time as a student outside of internships, we can help them with that. And then in terms of if they've been impacted, I say yes and no. So our students in the Career Center, for instance, and a lot of other students who work for the college, at least student services, they're still working. Like they're still working virtually. They still have a set schedule. They still help with our drop-ins. They still, are doing kind of all the same work for the most part that they would be if we were physically in our office. They're still TAs. There's still one of my peer assistants is also a research assistant and has been just as busy with his research. So I think there are still a lot of student jobs that are still happening virtually. I'm sure that there are some student jobs that existed in the past that just simply required an in-person presence, and there's not really work that could be conducted virtually that aren't happening. So I don't have any numbers or statistics on, how many less student or fewer student jobs there are on campus right now. Probably the ones that are affected the most would be like food service related ones, I would imagine, and potentially some related to working in our residence halls or things like that. But there are also a lot that are still happening in that virtual platform. So certainly if you have a student that's looking for employment through the university, we can help them with navigating that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Whitney, for sharing all this information. I'm going to turn it over to Andrea to give our sort of final closing thoughts, and we'll wrap it all up so everyone can get back to their day. But thank you again for sharing all these resources and your time today.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for having me. And I'll leave the slide up for just a minute. If anybody wants to write down my email address, feel free to do that. But then just thanks again for your participation in this program. I know all the value that you're providing your mentees. So definitely feel free to reach out if you've got any questions for me. Otherwise, I'll stop screen sharing here. It'll let me stop share and I'll go on mute.
All right. Thanks, Whitney. All right. So before we go, just a reminder, we did record today's event. So we will be sharing that with everybody following the event. That takes us usually about a week to get everything finalized and up on our YouTube page. We will also share all of the links that Whitney listed, all of those resources and her slides. So you'll have all of that great information going forward. So I just want to quickly share some upcoming events. We do have another monthly pairs event next week, December 10th, on informational interviews, and we're really excited about this one. We will have a student and a mentor sharing their experiences with informational interviews, and then have an opportunity for some small group discussion. So if you haven't signed up for that one yet with your mentee, I really recommend it. And then our mid-year program will be on January 25th at 7 p.m. We will be having a conversation about diversity in STEM, featuring former CSE mentee and alumna Jennifer Arjad. So registration information for that will be coming soon, and we hope to see you at that as well. Again, that will be also on Zoom. And finally, if you have any ideas for events or topics you'd like us to cover in a mentor program event, please let us know. We are planning our spring events now, and we will be doing a monthly pairs event in February and March. So if you've got an idea, please let me know what that idea is, something we could cover. And then finally, as always, if you have any questions, if you're having any trouble with your student, if you have any concerns, please reach out to myself or Joelle. We are here to help you. We are always available to help in any way we can. And like Whitney said, if you have specific questions about career services at the U, you can reach out to her directly. And thank you all for joining us, and have a great rest of your day.